If there's one piece of health advice that pretty much everyone agrees on, it's this. We all need more sleep. But what if the whole story we've been told, this narrative about a catastrophic lack of sleep, is, well, built on some pretty shaky science? Let's dig in and see what's really going on. I mean, listen to that. That is the kind of terrifying claim that really grabs you. It's from the hugely popular 2017 book Why We Sleep by neuroscientist Matthew Walker. And it's statements exactly like this that turned the book into a global phenomenon and turned a simple health topic into a major source of anxiety for millions of people. And, well, it absolutely worked. Why We Sleep shot up the bestseller lists all over the world. It made its author, a professor at UC Berkeley, probably the most famous sleep expert on the planet. The core message was simple and, let's be honest, pretty scary. We are in the middle of a global sleep loss epidemic, and it is literally killing us. Okay, so let's be super clear about something right up front. Nobody is arguing that sleep isn't important. It's absolutely crucial. The science on how sleep impacts our brain is well established, and it's actually fascinating. So before we dive into all the controversy, let's just quickly go over what we know for sure. It all comes down to this really cool process called memory consolidation. Think of your brain during the day like a super busy email inbox. It's just constantly flooded with new information. Well, sleep is when your brain's dedicated night shift manager finally comes in to sort through it all, carefully filing the important stuff into long-term storage and, hitting delete on all the junk. And what's really amazing is that different sleep stages do different jobs. During that deep, slow-wave sleep, your brain is like a meticulous librarian, archiving all the facts and figures, the stuff you crammed for a test. But then, during REM sleep, your brain becomes more of an artist. It starts weaving those new facts together with your old memories, strengthening skills, and making all these cool creative connections you'd never make when you're awake.
So yeah, sleep is obviously vital, no question. But the story told in Why We Sleep isn't just about the benefits of getting good rest, it's really about the catastrophic dangers of not getting enough. And it's that story that, according to some researchers, has some pretty serious holes in it.
And that brings us to the real heart of the issue, right? Is this book a scientifically accurate intervention, like the author claims? Or is it a huge exaggeration? Is it possible that in an attempt to simplify complex data, or maybe just to sell more books, the story has become something that might actually be doing more harm than good?
This all blew up when a detailed critique by an independent researcher named Alexey Guzey went viral. He pointed out dozens of what he called scientific and factual errors, arguing that the book consistently misrepresents studies and sometimes just flat out invents facts to create this sense of crisis.
So is that critique fair? Let's find out. We're going to put one of the book's most fundamental claims under the microscope, this whole idea of a global sleep loss epidemic. Okay, so right there on page 4 of the book, Walker states that the World Health Organization, the WHO, has declared a sleep loss epidemic. It's a powerful opening. But here's the thing. According to Guzey's research and, a quick search of the WHO's own website, it's just not true. The WHO has never, ever made a statement like that. So you might be wondering, where on earth did this claim come from? Well, if you look at the book's footnote, it doesn't point to a WHO report or a scientific paper. It points to a National Geographic documentary. And if you go and watch that documentary, guess what? It never once mentions the World Health Organization. You see, a discrepancy like that, it kind of opens the door to bigger questions. So let's see how this pattern plays out by comparing some of the book's other major claims directly with the actual scientific literature. This one is probably the book's most famous line. It's simple, it's direct, and it is absolutely terrifying. It implies a perfect straight-line relationship. The less sleep you get, the sooner you die, period. But that's not what most big, large-scale studies actually find. When you look at the data, the relationship between how long you sleep and how long you live isn't a straight line at all. It's what scientists call a U-shaped curve. And this chart illustrates it perfectly. This is based on a massive analysis of 35 different studies. And what do you see? The lowest risk of mortality is right there around 7 hours a night. But look over to the right. Sleeping 9 or more hours is actually associated with a higher risk, just like sleeping 5 hours is. This completely contradicts that simple shorter sleep, shorter life narrative.
Okay, but this next one, this is where the criticism gets really sharp. It's about more than just misinterpretation. It's an allegation of actually manipulating data. It all centers on a study about sleep and injury rates in teenage athletes.
In his book, and he said this on podcasts too, Walker presents a graph from this study and describes it as showing a perfect linear relationship. Basically, as sleep hours go down, injury risk goes up in a perfect straight line. Sounds convincing, right? Well, here's the catch. The graph that appears in Walker's book is not the same as the one in the original scientific paper. Something pretty important is missing. It turns out, the data point for athletes who slept just 5 hours a night was completely removed from the graph in the book. Why would that be? Well, probably because it breaks that perfect trend. In the original study, the athletes sleeping 5 hours actually had a lower injury rate than the ones sleeping 6 hours. You include that data point, and suddenly the perfect line isn't so perfect anymore.
So where does all of this leave us? Is the takeaway that sleep doesn't matter? No, of course not. The real takeaway is that this fear-based narrative might actually be doing more harm than good. The goal should be to find a healthy, balanced approach to sleep, one that's free from all this anxiety.
And this isn't just theoretical, this has real-world consequences. Sleep coaches and doctors started reporting that they were seeing patients who actually developed insomnia after reading this book. The intense pressure to get that perfect 8 hours created so much stress that it literally ruined their sleep.
So here's the crucial point. Sleep is absolutely essential, but obsessing over some magic number can completely backfire. Things like the quality of your sleep, consistency, and just how you feel when you wake up are so much more important than hitting a rigid target that might not even be right for you in the first place.
Instead of freaking out, we can focus on proven, practical habits. These are the steps that sleep researchers universally recommend. Things like keeping a consistent schedule, managing your light exposure, creating a restful environment, and getting regular exercise. See, this is all about building a healthy routine, not chasing some arbitrary number.
And that really leaves us with a final thought. This whole sleep to date shows us how easily science can be twisted into a scary headline. So instead of worrying about some catastrophic epidemic, maybe the most important question we can ask ourselves is a personal one. How can I listen to my own body to find the rest it actually needs?